Howdy everyone, welcome to the Tank and Spank Quick Hit Guide to Ruby Life Pools. Our goal with these guides is going to be to teach you the things you need to know to be successful in Mythic Plus and help you carry your group as a tank. We're going to go through the most important kicks, stops, and boss abilities to get you through the dungeon. In the area leading up to the first boss, you'll find a couple of primal juggernauts. They throw stuff on the ground, but otherwise don't do much out. In the first area, there's also a handful of Flash Frost Earth Shapers. These cast Tectonic Slam, which slaps pretty big AoE. This cast can't be interrupted, but it can be stopped with stuns and disorients and displacements. There are 3 of these right near the start, so if you're going to combine them into a big pool, make sure that you have these stops assigned. Your priority interrupt in the first area is the Ice Shield from the Flash Frost Chillweavers. This gives an ally a shield which can be purged. Throughout the room before the first boss, there are several eggs on the right and left sides of your path. If you or an enemy run over these, they spawn whelps, which you'd rather not deal with. They're also the same ones that you'll see on the boss, so we'll talk about them in just a second. You'll then fight your first of several mini-bosses, Defiler Draghar. Draghar will occasionally turn and target a random party member and charge at them. All players need to move out of this charge. He turns, faces someone, everybody moves, he charges through. If he charges into any eggs, he's going to spawn the whelps, and if he charges into the boss area, he's going to start the encounter. So make sure that everyone baits in a good direction, preferably into the wall. He also does a frontal cone on the tank, so if you're not tanking, you don't want to be in front of him, but the tank needs to know about this as well so you're not spinning him around all over the place and getting your DPS killed.
Then you get to the first boss, Melidrusa Trash. She casts hail bombs under every player, which erupt after a few seconds into ice shards. These persist throughout the fight and do a lot of damage if you run into them. Your tank can clear some of these with a DR up if they want. Melidrusa casts Chill Storm on a random player. They get a big circle debuff on them. They should run out of the group and drop it on the edge. After a few seconds, the circle starts sucking everyone in and doing damage. The boss also casts Awaken Whelps. She breaks open a pack of eggs around the room, and now you have no choice but to deal with the whelps. The whelps occasionally cast Cold Claws. These casts put a stacking debuff on the tank, and if it reaches 8 stacks, the tank is stunned for 3 years. AoE stun or silence the adds and nuke them. The healer should dispel the stacks when they start to get too high, then burst through the boss's shield to interrupt her and stop her pulsing AoE. The trash before the second boss is in a circle around the platform. It doesn't matter which direction you go first. To the left, you fight Thunderhead. He does a tank hit, Thunderjaw, and a frontal, Storm Breath at a random target. The big thing here, though, is Rolling Thunder. He puts a debuff on 2 players that ticks for a lot of damage on that player and explodes for high party damage when it's dispelled or expires. Players that get the debuff should pop a defensive. Healers should immediately dispel one player, top up the group, spot heal the second player with the debuff, and be ready to top off the group when the second debuff expires.
On the other side of the circle is Flame Gullet. He also does a tank buster and a frontal breath. When he drops below 50% health, he starts doing Molten Blood casts. This does an AoE damage that stacks with each cast until he's dead. There are 3 other types of mobs to worry about in the circle around the platform. Primalist Cinder Weavers cast Cinderbolt at random party members that hit like a truck and is your priority interrupt. They also give themselves a haste buff, Burning Ambition. This can be spell stolen or purged, so make sure you do that. Primalist Flame Dancers cast Flame Dance, which does a ton of AoE damage. This can't be kicked, but it can be stunned and needs to be. The big orange elementals, Blazebound Destroyers, put out a living bomb on players that do AoE damage around the players, puts a circle around them, and knocks them up. This will also knock up the other mobs that you're fighting. So, take this debuff underneath those mobs for a little bit extra damage as well as a little bit of mob control to help with your stuns and your stops by knocking these enemies up. Elementals also cast Inferno, which is just unavoidable AoE damage and needs to be healed through. When they die, they explode in a giant circle, so move out of this.
After you kill all of the destroyers, you'll get access to the second boss, Kokia Blazehoof. This boss is all about area denial and making sure you leave yourself room to work. You should pick a direction, clockwise or counterclockwise, to move. The boss targets a ranged DPS or healer and drops an elemental on them. The elemental casts Roaring Blaze, which needs to be interrupted or else it nukes your group. When the elemental dies, it explodes and leaves a pool of fire on the ground that you need to drag the boss out of. The boss also periodically throws out molten boulders at players that go in a straight line and explode if they hit a wall. If you get hit by the ball or the explosion, you die. So the idea is that the range need to bait the elementals in front of the direction you're moving so you have room to kill them without getting hit by boulders.
Heading to the next boss, most of the packs have channelers that do significant AoE damage, so be careful pulling too big. High Channeler Ravati, right before the last boss, also channels uninterruptible AoE damage that needs to be healed through. Usually stacking up for this will help the healer. Flame Channelers cast Flame Fire, which is your priority interrupt among these mobs. You should clear the entire final platform to give yourself room to fight the last boss. On to the last boss, Erkhart Stormvein and his dragon, Kyraka. Initially, Erkhart is unmounted. He casts Storm Slam, which hits like a truck and leaves a debuff that increases the damage of subsequent Storm Slam. This needs to be dispelled after every single strike. Make sure your healer's on top of this. He also casts Interrupting Cloudburst, which does a big AoE nuke and silences you if you're casting when it goes off. Initially, Kyraka just flies around, occasionally lands, and breathes fire across the platform. This needs to be avoided. After a while, she'll land, and Erkhart hops on her back. He keeps casting his abilities, and Kyraka adds a couple. She now casts Flame Spit, which debuffs players, and after a couple seconds drops a pool of fire. Try to drop these on the outside of the platform, because you also get this debuff if you get hit by any other fire damage in the encounter. If you run over a circle, you get a debuff that drops more circles. If you get hit by the breath, you get a debuff that drops more circles. The more pools you get hit by, the harder the boss becomes because you're going to start to run out of room. It's probably best to focus down Kyraka to reduce your party-wide damage and then finish off Erkhart last. But Erkhart does hit pretty hard during this, so if you're having trouble living it may be better for you to kill him first and then deal with the dragon second. And that's all we have for Ruby Life Pools. Thanks everyone for watching, and good luck pushing keys.